The galaxy had known peace for a long time. Hundreds of alien species lived together under the rule of the Galactic Union. They shared technology, built great cities among the stars, and believed war was a thing of the past. Their fleets were large and powerful, and their leaders believed no enemy could ever challenge them again. But everything changed when the Zorvath swarm arrived. No one knew where they came from, only that they came fast and without warning. They weren't creatures, made of flesh and blood. They were machines, giant metal beings with sharp limbs, glowing eyes, and no emotion. They moved like shadows in space, destroying everything in their path. They didn't talk, didn't ask for surrender, and didn't leave survivors. They came to consume and erase. One by one, the galaxy's outer colonies fell. Ships disappeared, without sending signals. Mining stations went silent. Planets full of life were turned into empty rocks. The Galactic Union sent fleets to stop them, but it didn't matter. The Zorvath adapted too quickly. They learned from every battle. Their ships rebuilt themselves. Their weapons changed shape in mid-fight. No matter how hard the Union tried, the swarm was always one step ahead. After just a few weeks, fear spread through every world. The mighty fleets that had once been symbols of peace now burned in orbit. Cities that had stood for thousands of years vanished in seconds. Entire species, once proud and strong, surrendered without a shot. They thought that maybe if they gave up, the swarm would spare them. The Council of Worlds met in secret, their faces pale and broken. There was no more strategy, no more plans. They sent one last message across the stars, a warning to Earth, the last planet still untouched. "Do not resist," the message said. "Lay down your arms. You cannot win." But Earth was not like the others. It was a small planet near the edge of the Union, known more for its wild history than for its strength. Other species often saw humans as strange, emotional, and unpredictable. They fought wars among themselves. They argued with their own leaders. They never seemed truly united. But when the swarm came, something changed. All of Earth's old battles were forgotten. Countries stood side by side. Flags didn't matter anymore. Humanity became one. The message from the Council was received, but Earth did not answer it with peace. Instead, they sent out their own message, clear and firm. "Then, let it burn." That single sentence echoed across space. It shocked the Council. It confused the swarm. Earth knew what it was facing. They knew their weapons were fewer, their ships smaller, and their chances slim. But they refused to kneel. Where others had seen no hope, humans saw one last fight worth having. They had faced disasters before, wars, storms, famine, even near extinction, and still they rose again and again. This would be no different. If the swarm wanted Earth, it would not be handed to them. They would have to take it, and they would bleed trying. Across the stars, the other races watched in silence. They had surrendered without a fight, but now they waited, holding their breath, as the last light in the galaxy refused to go out. Humanity was not running. Humanity was not afraid. Humanity was going to war. Captain Rhea Morgan stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge, Earth's largest remaining warship, staring at the endless black of space. Around her, the crew moved quickly but calmly, every person trained and ready. They had no choice. The Zorvath were coming. The alarms had already begun to sound across Earth's defense network. Satellites picked up the incoming swarm. Thousands of ships, dark and silent, like a sea of death. Other races had described them before. Massive black hulls that shimmered like liquid metal. Glowing red cores pulsing like hearts. But it was different seeing them with her own eyes. They were close now. too close. Behind Earth, the last human fleet was forming. A mix of older ships, half-built cruisers, and fast-moving fighters. Some vessels were barely held together, but every one of them was loaded with weapons, ready to die if needed. Humanity had been building this fleet in secret for years, hidden beneath ice moons and deep oceans, preparing for a threat no one believed would come. But it came, and now they had to fight with whatever they had. Across the ship's communication screen, the face of General Malik appeared. His voice was firm, but his eyes told the truth. He was afraid, but he was standing tall anyway. "You have one mission," he said to Rhea. "Hold them at the edge of the system. Don't let even one reach Earth." Rhea nodded once. Understood. The screen went dark. Outside the viewport, the stars seemed to blink. And then the sky turned red. The swarm had arrived. Without warning, their ships began to open fire. Bright beams of energy cut across space like knives, tearing through asteroids and debris. Human ships dodged and fired back, launching missiles, plasma rounds, and electromagnetic bursts. Explosions lit up space, painting everything in flickers of fire. Rhea barked orders, and her crew responded like a single mind. Shields flared, engines roared, and the horizon's edge dove straight into the heart of the swarm. It was chaos. It was war. For every Zorvath ship destroyed, 10 more replaced. But the humans didn't stop. They fought with everything. Clever tricks, dirty tactics, and raw willpower. Fighters zipped through narrow gaps between ships, dropping bombs and vanishing like ghosts. Smaller cruisers rammed into larger enemies, exploding in blinding flashes. Even damaged vessels stayed in the fight, using their last breath to take out something bigger. And yet, the Zorvath kept coming. They moved as one, cold and perfect without hesitation. Their ships changed shape mid-battle, adapting to human attacks. They studied every move and countered it seconds later. It felt hopeless. But Rhea saw something else. She saw the humans push harder, even as the odds worsened. A young pilot named Kim, barely 20, flew her ship directly into the mouth of a massive Zorvath destroyer, setting off a blast that tore the machine apart. On another channel, an engineer rerouted his ship's core to power the weapons one last time before losing all control. Each person was ready to die, not because they wanted to, but because they believed Earth was worth saving. Rhea wiped blood from her forehead after a nearby blast shook the bridge. Her ship was damaged, but still flying. She leaned forward, voice clear and steady. "Don't give them space," she said. "If we fall fighting." Her crew roared in reply. Around them, the black sky burned with fire and smoke. Earth was still behind them, untouched for now. The line had not broken, not yet. And as long as one human ship remained, the line would hold. The battle dragged on, hour after hour, and the space around Earth became a graveyard of broken ships and drifting fire. Bodies floated in silence, both human and machine, lit only by the dim glow of ruined engines. The human fleet was shrinking, fast. Whole squadrons had been lost. Some ships vanished in flashes of light, others burned slowly, torn apart piece by piece. But still, they fought. Every surviving pilot, every gunner, every engineer, no one gave up. Captain Rhea Morgan's voice was hoarse from shouting commands, her face covered in ash and sweat. The horizon's edge had taken heavy damage. 2 of its engines were gone, most weapons offline, and half the crew injured or dead. But the core still burned. The heart of the ship still beat. They were alive, and that meant they could still fight. In the silence between explosions, A new voice came through the comms. Commander Theo Lang from the Valkyrie, a stealth ship that had been hiding near the outer edge of the battlefield. "We found something," he said quickly, breathless. "The swarm. We think we found their queen." Rhea froze for a second. The swarm had always seemed endless, unstoppable. No leader, no center. Just machines, spreading like a virus. But Theo explained. His team had been scanning patterns, tracking command signals hidden between Zorvath ships. They noticed a strange frequency, a pulse, always coming from the same direction. A single ship, deep in the swarm. Larger, darker, shaped like a twisted star. It never fired, never moved, just floated in silence while others defended it. Theo believed it wasn't just a control center. It was the swarm's mind. Destroying it might stop everything, or at least slow them down. Rhea knew it was their only chance. The fleet couldn't last another day, maybe not even another hour. She sent orders fast. All remaining ships were to break through enemy lines and strike the Queen ship. It was madness, a suicide mission, but no one hesitated. They adjusted course, changed formation, and moved like one blade aimed at the heart. The swarm responded instantly, redirecting thousands of ships to protect their queen. The sky turned red again. The attack began. Human ships dove into the chaos, dodging fire, tearing through the enemy with rage and desperation. One by one they fell, lighting up the dark with sacrifice. The Valkyrie led the charge, using its stealth tech to cut deep through enemy layers. It took hit after hit, but pushed forward. Rhea followed with the horizon's edge, her eyes locked on the black star floating in the distance. Everything else faded. Nothing else mattered. The Queen ship was unlike anything they had seen. Smooth, alive, with no windows, no seams, just a glowing center that pulsed like a giant eye. As they got closer, the swarm grew wild, desperate, almost afraid. It was the first time they'd seen emotion in their enemy. That alone gave hope. With a final burst of power, Rhea's ship reached the Queen. Weapons offline, shields gone, engines burning. They had only one shot. She gave the order to overload the core. A bright blue light filled the ship. Her crew looked at each other, not with fear, but with pride. They were going to end it. The ship's heart exploded with a force that tore through the stars. The Queen ship cracked, then shattered, breaking into pieces that drifted like dust. Across space, the swarm paused. For a moment, the battle stopped. Then, one by one, the Zorvath ships shut down, falling silent, lifeless, drifting. The mind was gone, and the galaxy could breathe again. The silence after the Queen ship's destruction felt unreal, like the universe itself had stopped breathing. Across the battlefield, human soldiers looked out through cracked windows and shattered cockpits, watching the enemy ships drift without purpose. The Zorvath swarm, once a perfect machine of death, was now broken, scattered like dead leaves in the wind. For the first time in days, there was no gunfire, no screaming alarms, no violent shaking from impact. Just the quiet hum of damaged systems and the echo of distant debris clinking off ruined hulls. Yet, no one cheered. The cost had been too high. The horizon's edge was gone, lost in its final strike. Captain Rhea Morgan's last act had saved humanity, but it had taken her with it. The crew that had once stood strong by her side was gone, too, their voices now memories echoing in the silence of space. Commander Theo Lang, piloting the barely functional Valkyrie, tried to contact Earth. Static filled the channel at first. Then came the voice of General Malik, broken and rough but alive. He had watched the explosion from orbit. He knew what it meant. "You did it, Malik said, his voice trembling. She did it. Across Earth's scattered command centers, people cried, not just for joy, but for all the lives lost. The swarm's silence didn't mean the war was over, only that they had won a single, vital battle. Theo looked out at the wreckage. Ships that had once soared with hope now floated lifelessly. Fire and ash marked where heroes had died. Fighters ran low on fuel, and many survivors were wounded, barely holding on. But even so, there was strength in the quiet. Humans began pulling wrecked ships together, forming clusters of survivors. Engineers climbed out of broken hulls, patching systems, with bare hands and melted tools. Medics moved from vessel to vessel, giving aid with what little they had. Ships that could still move began towing the wounded. Everyone worked together, no rank, no pride, only purpose. They were alive, and that meant the fight could continue if needed. Back on Earth, people gathered in cities, on rooftops and in streets, staring up at the sky. They had watched the battle from afar, fearing the end. But now, they saw hope shining through the smoke. Emergency broadcasts told of the Queen ship's fall, of Rhea's sacrifice, of how humanity had done what no other race dared to try. Children hugged parents, strangers embraced. The world that had once prepared for death now prepared to rebuild. A memorial beacon was sent into space, a small satellite broadcasting Rhea Morgan's name and the names of every soul lost in the battle. It blinked in the dark, a soft light to remind the galaxy of what had happened here, of what humans were capable of. On distant worlds, other alien species watched and listened. The same races that had once surrendered now looked to humanity, with new eyes. They had seen humans hold the line when no one else would. They had seen sacrifice, bravery, and something else. Something dangerous to those who ruled through fear. Defiance. Even broken. Even outnumbered. Humanity refused to kneel. And now, with the swarm in retreat and the Queen dead, a quiet shift began across the stars. Word spread fast. The humans didn't surrender. They fought, and they won. But while some cheered, others feared. Powerful empires and secret councils, once safe in their silence, now saw Earth as something new. Not weak, not young, but unstoppable. And in the heart of the ruins, among the drifting wreckage and fading smoke, a spark remained. A warning to all who would dare challenge humanity. Again, they would never go down quietly. They would never surrender without a fight. Far beyond Earth, on the cold and ancient world of Lithar Prime, the Galactic Council gathered in silence. These were the rulers of 1,000 star systems, giants of power, wisdom, and fear. They had watched the war from safe distances, their cloaks clean and hands unstained. When the Zorvath swarm first appeared, they didn't fight. They didn't even try. Instead, they surrendered, gave up their fleets, their worlds, and their pride, believing resistance was useless. Swarm was too fast, too many, too perfect. But now, after the Battle of Earth, everything had changed. The humans had done the impossible. They had faced the storm and stood their ground. The Queen of the Swarm was dead, and the swarm itself had crumbled into silence. It had shattered the Council's belief that nothing could stand against such a force. A recording played in the center of the great chamber, footage from a damaged drone that had survived the battle. It showed the moment the Horizon's Edge rammed into the Queen ship. It showed Rhea Morgan's face, calm and fierce, as her crew prepared for death. And then, the explosion. No words were spoken. The council members sat still, their alien eyes locked on the fading image. Finally, a voice spoke. It came from Chancellor Vurek, a towering insectoid leader who had once mocked humans as emotional apes with shiny toys. Now, his voice shook. "They are not what we thought." Murmurs followed. Fear crept into the room. Not fear of the swarm, but fear of humanity. If a small planet on the edge of the galaxy could destroy the greatest threat ever known, what else could they do? What would they do next? One member, a soft-spoken being of light named Silar, asked the question none dared say aloud. Do we treat them as heroes or a danger? The answer was silence. Far away, back in Earth's orbit, the survivors continued to rebuild. Commander Theo Lang had taken temporary control of the remains of the fleet. He worked day and night with engineers, trying to bring power back to crippled ships. They sent rescue pods deep into the battlefield, searching for anyone still alive. Every time they found someone, the cheers spread through the comms like wildfire. Theo didn't sleep much. He kept hearing Ria's voice in his head. He'd served with her for years, and now she was gone. But her spirit was everywhere. In every repair crew, in every medic, in every soldier who picked up a tool or weapon and refused to give up. Earth's leaders declared a planetary day of remembrance. The sky lit up with soft white lights like stars scattered across the cities. People held hands, they sang, they wept. But above all, they promised to never forget. Not just the pain, but the courage. Across the stars, strange messages began arriving. Small signals from other worlds, survivors of the swarm. Some asked for help. Others offered it. A few just said thank you. Humanity's name was now carried in whispers and in songs. Some called them the Defiant. Others, the Flame that wouldn't die. On Lither Prime, the Council finally made a choice. A decision that would change the galaxy forever. They would send a messenger to Earth, not with threats, but with respect. For the first time in centuries, they would offer a seat in the Council to a race they once ignored. Not because of fear, but because they knew the truth now. Humanity was not just another species. They were a force, unshakable, brave, and when the galaxy surrendered, only they stood tall. The day Earth received the Galactic Council's invitation, the sky was still healing. The war was over, but the scars remained. Burnt cities were being rebuilt. Orphaned children played in streets lined with rubble, and flags flew half-raised in memory of the fallen. In the skies above, wreckage from the great battle still floated, silently. Yet among all this pain, something new had begun to grow. Hope. Commander Theo Lang stood before the United Human Coalition, the message from the Council in his hand. It wasn't just a message, it was an acknowledgement. The galaxy had bowed to the swarm without a single blast fired, but humanity had not. Humanity had bled, fought, lost, and yet had won. The Council now offered Earth a place among the stars, not as a begging survivor, but as an equal, as a power, as a guardian. The leaders of Earth argued for days. Some wanted to reject the offer, still bitter from the Council's past cowardice. Others saw a chance to guide the future, to make sure what happened with the swarm would never happen again. In the end, they agreed. Earth would send a representative, and there was no doubt who it would be. Theo Lang. He traveled across light years, in a rebuilt cruiser named Morgan's Honor, after the captain whose sacrifice had turned the tide. With him went a small crew, diverse, skilled, and loyal. Among them was a young pilot who had once been saved by Ria during a training mission, and an alien technician who had fled to Earth when his own people surrendered. Together, they represented more than a military force. They represented what humanity had become: tough, united, and open to those who chose to stand beside them. When they reached Lither Prime, the Council's world, they were met not with guns, but with silence and bowed heads. The same leaders who had once ignored Earth now rose to their feet when Theo entered. The hall was carved from crystal and stone, lit by the light of a blue sun. Every seat was filled, every eye on him. He spoke not as a conqueror, but as a voice for the dead. He told them about the children who'd screamed in shelters, the soldiers who never came back, and the billions who lived because of their sacrifice. He spoke of Captain Morgan, her final charge, and the light that broke the Queen's ship into nothing. He told them that Earth had not fought for power, but because they refused to die in silence. The chamber remained still for a long time after he finished. Then, slowly, the council stood. One by one, they placed their species' symbols before him, a sign of full recognition. Earth was no longer just another planet. It was now a world that could not be ignored. And as Theo looked around the chamber, he saw something even greater than respect. He saw fear, but the good kind. The kind that comes from realizing that strength can also be mercy. That power can also mean protection. When Theo returned to Earth, he brought more than a title. He brought new allies, new trade routes, new knowledge. Earth's skies were soon filled not with warships, but with ships of peace. Refugees from broken worlds came to rebuild. Former enemies became neighbors. Humanity became a symbol, not of domination, but of endurance. And in schools, children read about the time the galaxy surrendered, and how Earth didn't. They lit candles on Rhea Morgan Day, and ships paused their engines to honor the signal beacons still drifting in space, blinking softly with the names of the lost. The stars remembered. And so did the galaxy.